Big round of applause, please, for the Senior Vice President of Google, David Drummond. Thank you.
Now, the last time I gave a speech, kind of a major speech at a news industry event, was almost 5 years ago. And here's a little of what I said. Imagine that we're in 2015, and this is a piece of technology which delivers me my news. I can flip through my favorite papers and magazines without a frustrating wait for each new page to load. Even better, it knows who I am, what I like, and what I've already read. So the stories that appear are tailored to my interests and my needs. Now, there's an interesting piece in Egypt's Al-Ahram, translated automatically from Arabic to English. A story pops up about great restaurants in Hyderabad. I tap my finger on the screen to tell the computer, hey, you got that part right. Some of these stories will be part of my monthly news subscription package. Some, where the free preview lures me in, will cost me a few pennies that'll be billed to my account. Now, others will be free, paid for by advertisements. Now, I concluded that speech by encouraging publishers to work with Google, not without Google or not against us. Now, that's also clearly a work in progress. Now, in Spain, we've had our ups and downs. The all or nothing kind of nature of the copyright law that was passed led us to close Google News here. That was a lose-lose for everyone, and frankly, it was one of the saddest decisions I've had to make in all my years at Google. Now, today I want to talk a little bit more about what we're doing today, how we're working with the news industry in 2015, and how we intend to work with you in the years ahead. And I want to talk about why. We want to play our role in making sure that high-quality journalism has a sustainable future. In April, we announced the Digital News Initiative. It's a partnership between Google and news publishers in Europe to support quality journalism and support it through technology and through innovation. Less than 2 months ago, we started out with 11 partners, including our hosts here, the Global Editors Network, The Guardian in the UK, Die Zeit in Germany, Les Echos in France, El País in Spain. I'm very pleased to say that they've now been joined by more than 65 new participants, and we've received over 1,000 expressions of interest from across Europe. Now, we're working together in 3 areas. First, on product development, on training and research, and on supporting innovation in digital news. I believe we really have an historic opportunity to help shape the future of the industry in a way that can ensure the survival of high-quality journalism online and create better services for users. It's going to take time, but our engineering and product leaders are already engaged in detailed thinking with a group of publishers on a set of priorities that includes video, includes mobile, and monetization. Now, the second pillar of our partnership is training and research. Through our newly established News Lab at Google, our program of newsroom training workshops with a dedicated European team is already well underway. By the end of this year, we'll have worked with 10,000 journalists around the world through newsroom trainings and partnerships with such groups as the European Journalism Center, the International News Media Association, and GEN. For the past 4 years, we've partnered with GEN on the Data Journalism Awards to encourage growth in this highly promising area of journalism. Now, we've always felt at Google that aggregated search data has the potential to be a great source of raw material for journalists. In May, our search data showed that the British were gripped by 2 things: the general election, of course, and the Eurovision Song Contest. Now, what did we learn from this? Well, first of all, we learned that a lot of people were wondering what the devil the Australians were doing in the European Song Contest. More importantly, Google Trends actually confounded the pollsters a bit and successfully predicted that David Cameron would win the election. And after talking to dozens of journalists about how the platform could be more useful, we've actually undertaken a major revamp of Google Trends. Now, turning to research, I'm delighted to say that the Reuters Institute Digital News Report, which we support under the D&I project, has just launched its 2015 edition covering 12 countries. We've also been busy gathering proposals for our Computational Journalism Awards, and today we're announcing the academic research grants each of about 55,000 euros to encourage collaboration between computer science and journalism at universities in Europe. Now, in the weeks since we announced the kickoff of D&I, we've had some great conversations throughout the news industry. For example, at an unconference that we organized in Helsinki that was called Newsgeist, one of the topics was top of mind for editors was the question of how their publications can maintain or indeed rebuild trust in an era of atomic news consumption. Now, based on these conversations, we've committed to funding an initiative called the Trust Project, led by the Markula Center for Applied Ethics in California, Santa Clara University, which aims to propose approaches and structures to rebuild trust in online journalism. Now, I'm delighted to say that the Trust Project has extended its pilot to include a number of prominent European news organizations, including La Stampa, Die Zeit, and the BBC. Now, since we announced the D&I, there's also been a good deal of interest in the third pillar, which is something that we're calling the Innovation Fund. We've allocated 150 million euros, and that's aimed at stimulating and supporting innovation in digital journalism within the news industry in Europe. The ambition and the intent of the fund, we hope, is bold. We'd like to spark new thinking, which could come from anywhere in the news ecosystem, to give news organizations, whatever their size, the space to try some new things. Now, what kind of proposals are we looking for? In short, the emphasis will be on experimental and we hope impactful projects. We want to see genuinely new ideas from those engaged in the day-to-day practice of journalism with the potential to transform the way we all think of digital news. At the higher end of investment, so if we are going to do big investments, we're going to ask that the participants actually share the risk, have some skin in the game by investing some of their own money as well. Anyone working on innovation in the online news business in Europe will be able to apply, including national, regional publishers, new players, pure players, and so on. One final thought on this. This might be a great area for news organizations to actually come together and submit joint proposals, as there are many ideas that are going to affect the entire ecosystem, and it's pretty clear that collaboration can probably benefit everyone involved. Now, finally, I want to say something that's a word about something that's really close to my heart, which is press freedom. Over the last year, we've quietly worked and actually operated an experiment called Project Shield to protect hundreds of news sites around the world from attacks aimed at censoring them by taking them offline. We do this by putting Google's considerable computing power, we've got a few computers laying around, between the attackers and independent media sites to help them stay up in times of crisis when they're needed most. Project Shield has protected more than 250 at-risk sites in more than 50 countries. For example, during last year's conflict in Ukraine, Ukrainian and Russian media sites were facing denial of service attacks. Project Shield offered protection to news organizations on both sides, and during the 2-month period alone, we protected over 650 million page views from censorship. To conclude, these are interesting times in the relationship between the news industry and the technology industry. I'd say they're potentially even historic times. We've always sought to be a good partner to the news industry, though we've tended to operate sort of on different paths, and sometimes the dialogue seems to be sort of the death, particularly on our side. We're determined to change that. We really are. We recognize that technology companies and news organizations are part of the same information ecosystem, and we're committed to playing our part. But of course, it's not just Google. Facebook, Apple, Twitter, and others are also engaged in initiatives aimed at working more closely with publishers and helping to reimagine the future of news. Now, as the great playwright Arthur Miller once put it, a good newspaper is a nation talking to itself. Today, we're not just talking to ourselves, but talking with each other. Long may that conversation continue. Thanks very much.
When and why did Google change its attitude towards how it approaches and collaborates with publishers?
Well, I think it's been an evolution, over the past few years. I think we sort of evolved ourselves from feeling, well, wait a minute, the things you're saying about Google are unfair. We are not trying to build any service, at the expense of journalism. In fact, we sort of had this, I don't know if you call it indignation, but sort of this feeling like, well, wait a minute, like we didn't create ad-supported news on the web, that model. That was, I think the news industry created that model. Well, all we've done is drive traffic to it, which, by the way, is what you need for advertising, right? And so we had this kind of feeling like, well, why are the guns trained on us? And I think that, like many Silicon Valley companies, this whole question of emotional intelligence, right, as opposed to what's just logical and sort of makes sense, we sometimes are lacking in, right? And as we had more conversations, being clear that the way to go here is, yes, maybe we have slightly different points of view about copyright law and about the extent to which search engines should be able to index this, headlines or snippets or pictures or what have you. There are all kinds of details. But at the end of the day, we've got an opportunity, to apply some of the things we know how to do with technology to what journalists know how to do.
What about the closer links with publishers? When does Google start asking for more from publishers? Does Google want to influence publishers more than it does at the moment?
I don't know that the plan is to influence. I think we have a joint interest, right, in making sure that really good journalism is out there, is supported, and is taking advantage of technologies to get it to users, and to get it to users in very interesting ways. So, I mean, there are things that we know about data and, the power of data and how it can work, about targeting and all these kinds of things. And I think that we can provide some of those insights. But at the end of the day, the innovation is going to have to come from the news industry.
David, I'm going to thank you and release you from your duties. You've got to run, but thank you so much. Really great to see you. See you again. Big round of applause for David Drummond. Thank you.